Hello, and welcome everybody to episode 12, I think, of Sunday Service with me, your host, Aaron Chandler. You notice that we've got more of a harsh lighting setup today, more of a vibrant white light-based setup. That's because summertime has come. Now, not in the sense of it's that season where I am in the world, but in the sense that it is slightly warm outside. And it's beautiful. God damn it. Because in Ireland, right? And you'll hear a lot of Irish people say this, I'm about to engage in what we in the industry refer to as a bit of paddywhackery, right? I'm just going to make some very generic jokes that Irish people make. And you guys are going to think that's funny because you're Americans and you will fucking eat up anything, won't you? Huh? And even the Irish people will eat it up a little bit because they'll go, yeah, that's so us, and you should be ashamed of yourselves, right? So, this past week, it's been relatively sunny outside in dear old Ireland. We've been hitting temperatures as high as 18 degrees centigrade. In Fahrenheit, I don't know what that is because I'm not a fucking loser, right? And yeah, the weather's been beautiful, And the thing about that is we don't get good weather here very often, most of the Irish people around, they're saying this is our summer. And, while that's not very funny, it is probably true. We probably aren't going to get much better than this for the rest of the year. Because we're a marshy bog of a country, We're the wind and rain wall that England needed to become the world's first industrialized society, They couldn't have done it without us, without our mountains and hills blocking the wind and rain from reaching London City, without stealing our crops and land for 800 years. I'm not upset about that. Why would I be? None of that happened to me. I was born into a world where all that was basically already resolved, except for, dairy and all that, right? I don't hold anything against any English people. The royal family, maybe a little, but not even as much as most Irish people do, I don't give a fuck about Charlie. You know what I mean? He can do whatever he wants, King Charles, or as Donald Trump calls him, Mr. Bean in a crown. That's a little John Oliver impression for you all there at the start, That's, I don't know if I came up with that one or my friend did, I think my friend came up with that one. We were doing John Oliver impressions, and because all of John Oliver's joke follow that exact same structure, like Elon Musk, the Hamburglar of democracy, that kind of thing, right? Just says a person, and then he says just a very kind of basic joke about them that isn't really based on anything, but then he does a Photoshop of what that might look like. So it's Elon Musk's face on the Hamburglar, or then it's Mr. Bean wearing like a Burger King crown. And that's humor. And that is the most successful late night talk show on the planet, and I'll never reach those levels of wealth or fame. And that's fine. That's okay, But yeah, it's been nice weather here, and I've been taking advantage, because you got to take advantage, Nice weather in Ireland, that's like Apple stocks at 10 cents. That's like Apple stocks at 10 cents a share. Do you know what I mean? You gotta get it while it's going, because this opportunity might never come up again, It's like meeting a girl. It's like going on a date with a girl. And there comes that point in the night where it's like, all right, she's kind of looking at me a bit longingly. I can either kiss her now or never again. There'll never be another opportunity to kiss this woman. So I better go I better get them while they're hot. You know what I mean? That's what Americans say. So yeah, it's like now or never, it's like you got to take advantage of this while it's going, So I've been out in some beer gardens, I've been out in the sun reading books, right? I've been doing those kind of summery things. I haven't been getting a tan. I've been wearing sunscreen, obviously. Don't want to get skin cancer. Think I might already have it, maybe. Have one mole that has changed size over the past few years. Maybe not in a manner that's significant. I just realized my bed sheets are very white, and that's probably going to fuck up the lighting of this episode. That's fine, We're just going to ignore that. And the sheet underneath is white as well, so there's no way to fix that. And I'm on a tight schedule today. This episode is going to be short, because I want to go out and enjoy the sun. No, I'm not. I'm actually recording this at the tail end of the sunniness. Like, there was a bit of rain today. Like, it's all, like Pompeii, it's all, paradise is disintegrating around us because of our sins. because of our envy. This is a bit of a Tower of Babel situation. Not a Tower of Babel situation. That's the wrong metaphor. This is a Garden of Eden situation. We had it all, and then what did we do with it? We just engaged in lustful crimes against our Lord and God. We weren't grateful for what he gave us. We took advantage of it. We were just out there in the sun having sex during the daytime on beaches. You know what I mean? Drinking booze well before noon, just having a few margaritas and mimosas on the beach, finding the only sandy beach in Ireland and overpopulating it to the point where everyone's going to get the flu. Right? Some kid is going to drown, in a tragic kind of way. And that's what we did, God forbid we have anything nice, right? I don't think that's happened yet. I don't think any kids have drowned during this nice weather, because we live in a country where that would be on the news, we don't have a lot going on, unlike you American folk, our country's kind of fine, so we're not too worried about any of that kind of carry on. Or whatever it is you guys got going. Basically when a kid dies here, we're just like, oh, that happened. Whereas, if you live in a country with like 1 billion people, like in China or something, if a kid dies, it's just like, well, fucking hire someone else, right? So yeah, I don't have even a lot to talk about on this episode, so it is going to be very short. Will I even make the 30-minute mark? That is a very, very good question, right? I don't know. Maybe I'll start talking slow and enunciate my words very clearly in order to give us a little bit of extra time here on this podcast. But yeah, basically what I just did there for 5 minutes was what we call paddywhackery. And that's when Irish people think that being Irish is inherently funny in and of itself, which it isn't. You guys in America, you've seen plenty of that, except you gobble it up. Like the Irish, you guys think it is funny that you guys think it is inherently funny that we're Irish. You'll have some Irish comedian over there, some ginger guy, right? 5'11", tall, but by American standards, right? Not like too tall, tall by white people standards, right? He'll be like, well, yeah, that guy's so tall and handsome, he has an Irish accent, and he'll go, sure, I lived down in Donegal there for the past 4 years, and when I lived down in Donegal, I tell you, what we did was we had loads of American tourists over, and you American tourists, you're like, Jesus, you're like a potato that's gotten a bit too moist, you've got a bit of weight on you, is all I'm saying, you got one too many eyes, I tell you, so down in Donegal there we have the American tourists, and they come through and they say, I would hate it to the King of Munster, and I say, Jesus, well, boy, you better get to your throne room, huh? Because we Irish people are not too fucking satisfied with what you've been doing to the country. You better go back there and claim your throne there now, that kind of stuff, right? And that's what I was doing there, to a lesser extent, I was engaging in like very low level, culturally acceptable in Ireland paddywhackery. And I'm sorry, but look, my creative talents are drained. I think basically everyone, people say human beings have unlimited potential. Maybe they do. But I think that's not true at all. I think you have a certain amount of talent within you, and once you've used it up, it's gone. I don't actually think this, but let's go with this premise, right? I think basically as a comedic figure, right, which I've yet to establish myself to be. I'm going to face this way so that the weird white lighting reflecting off of the mattress is ignorable. Oh, but now you can see that stuff I left on the bed because I'm recording this episode in a rush. Oh, well. Look, hey, I'm not perfect, right? I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? God knows I wish I was, huh? What was I just saying? It's gone completely. I think I might be getting Alzheimer's, or just maybe not very. I think I might just have ADHD, actually. I'm still wearing the sunglasses. I meant to take those off within the first, several seconds of the episode. Fuck it. Let's leave them on. The lighting reflection in them isn't too bad, so we're just gonna chill like this, give it that summer vibe, right? But also it probably looks really sloppy and unprofessional. It's fine, Let's go listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers in the park, right? Get that summer vibe going. Listen to a little bit of live acoustic music, right? From a guy who is really into the fact that he can play guitar. You never meet anyone who can play guitar who isn't really. By the way, I have a little plaster there. I was trimming up my beard today, and I cut into the skin a little bit. The most superficial wound one could possibly make, right? But the thing about me is I'm a little bit psychotic when it comes to concerns of my health and well-being, and I'm pretty sure that that's definitely going to get sepsis. So, we're making moves to avoid that, Anyway, I was saying something there about Americans and paddywhackery, and I really just can't remember what I was saying at all, to be honest with you guys. So, but that's bad because that was one of the 3 topics I'd written down, and we've got to talk for 20 more minutes. And actually, the other 2 topics I've written down, I don't even really want to talk about them. So, we're in a bit of a lull here. So yeah, you're getting a shorter episode this week, actually, and the reason you're getting that is because I'm after making a complete balls of how I do these episodes, if I'm being real with you guys, right? Is if I sit closer, is the lighting a little bit better? I think that's fine now, right? They're always coming out late, and that doesn't matter because no one watches, but eventually that will matter, right? So what I'm doing this week is I'm going to record a shorter one at a time when it's convenient, and then next week I'll have ample time to prepare for an episode that's a bit longer, right? It's pretty funny how like one of those lenses is completely dark and the other one you can totally see my eyeball. I don't know. You know what happened to me this week? I went to get a haircut, and I booked the haircut in, right? But because the weather was nice, around about an hour before I was getting the haircut, I was just like, fuck it, let's go to the park, sit on a bench, read a book. Typical summer kind of vibes because I have no friends. I do have friends, but they were, I have days off work during the week, whereas they have days off work on the weekend. So that, how it goes, right? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have any experience with that kind of thing whatsoever. I don't even remember what I was saying again. Oh no, this is going to be one of those bad episodes. No, it's not. It's going to be one of those great episodes, right? It's going to be one of the best episodes we have. Yes, now I remember. So I'm basically just going to record this episode now, make it a little bit shorter than most of the episodes, and then by next week, I'll be able to get an episode out to you that's an hour long, fully, good quality. It's all good. I'm not going to do a bonus episode, because remember when we did the bonus episode and it didn't work out? Never again. We will do one again, but when I'm feeling more confident, when I really feel like I can deliver it. Whereas last time I promised it preemptively and it didn't work out at all. I was just doing it to deliver on a promise, and then the quality episode was kind of shitty, actually. So yeah, I definitely did forget a train of thought there, but now I've moved on completely. So that's okay. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that, right? These are prescription sunglasses. No one asked. But the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to. It's a kind of a balls needing to wear glasses because you can only kind of have one pair of sunglasses then, or 2. I have this pair and I do have a spare pair, but they're both very basic. I've got the aviators and then I've got the black rim sunglasses, and that's kind of a balls because one of the great things about when it's sunny out is seeing all the different kinds of sunglasses, and I feel like I'm left out of that, and I think that maybe really is the heart of all my insecurity in life. Not the fact that. I was just looking at my notes. Not the fact that I didn't get enough attention growing up, or probably too much of the wrong kind of attention. Probably that second one, depending on which parent you go with, right? I don't know. I forgive them. I forgive my mother and father. They did their best, I think. At times. I think they did a pretty good job overall. I haven't turned out the worst, you know what I mean? I think I'm pretty much okay. I'm definitely narcissistic and self-centered, but not in a way that's harming others directly, Maybe in the long term, it's putting a damper on my friends and family. But I think largely, I'm a decent guy, My older brother, he's a great guy, right? I was thinking about him the other day, right? He's a great guy, He's very strong man, Never cries, but not like in an unhealthy way, and like I'm just things are fine for me kind of way, right? You know what I mean? Always there to support his mother and father, always there to support his siblings, has a great wife lined up, They have a great relationship. They're really nice to each other. They're kind, they're supportive. And, I think there's a part of you that could be envious of that. But I think the great job my parents did, or maybe it's just in my nature, is that I'm not really an envious guy. Like, I can recognize that he's doing better than me, but I'm actually happy for him. And I really am, which isn't really what I expected, because I'm not a good guy, right? I'm actually kind of a very bad guy. Like, do I have a little bit of, like, but I think my kind of shittiness isn't directed in that way, Jealousy isn't one of the sins I kind of gravitate towards. I'm more prideful, That's the sin that really gets to me. Lustful a little bit as well, but I think, aren't we all as men a little bit lustful? You know what I mean? I've stopped. I've largely quit consuming pornography. And let me tell you, bad idea. Because now that it's sunny, the vitamin D is getting up a bit, right? I remember during COVID, this is a bit of a tangent, but during COVID, there was this belief for a moment that taking vitamin D was a good preventative measure for COVID. And, the research on that was kind of touch and go. There was, some good arguments for it, some against. But during that time, I looked into the benefits of vitamin D, and I'm a very pale guy. I used to not get a lot of sun. I was definitely, housebound for most of the COVID pandemic. So I was looking into just the benefits of vitamin D overall. And I started taking vitamin D supplements. And then something crazy happened, which is that as I started taking vitamin D, I became far, far more lustful as a man. What's that about, right? So I went to my doctor and I asked him about it. Well, I went to the doctor for something else. My ankle was sore, because you can't go to the doctor and ask, why am I so horny? Because it was during a global pandemic. He's got more important things, So I twisted my ankle or something, right? I actually broke it, it turned out, in the long run. But while I was at the doctor's office, I asked him, I was like, hey, doc, because I'm a police officer in New York in the 1940s. I was like, hey, doc, I'm taking these vitamin supplements and they got me all worked up over here. Hey, what's the deal with that, huh? And the doctor, he asked me, he goes, how old are you? And at the time I was 20, so I go, I'm 20. Because I'm not a liar, right? I go, hey, so this is the conversation we've had so far. Let me reenact it for you, just in case you're not up to date on the conversation we've been having. This is what it was. I walk into the doctor's office, I sit down and I say, hey, doc, I've been taking these vitamin supplements and they get me all worked up and shit. What's the deal with that? Oh, that's interesting. How old are you? I'm 20 years old, because I was born in 2001 and now it's the year 2021 AD, Anno Domino, after the death of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. That's where we're at so far, right? And then he says to me, he was like, oh yeah, that happens. So now, here's where we're at right now, right? So here's the conversation so far. I've walked into the doctor's office and I've said, hey, doc, it's me, Aaron Chandler, from the patients list. Hey, how are you doing, huh? Hey, I've been taking these vitamin supplement pills, vitamin D1000, right? And they've been getting me all worked up over here, horny for the nudie mags, right? And what's the deal with that, huh? Why is that happening? And he goes, oh, hello, Aaron. Nice to see you again. How old are you, may I ask? This is relevant to your diagnosis, by the way. Or prognosis, rather. Just so you know, I'm not asking you to be invasive. I'm asking you for a medically necessary reason. And I go, I'm 20 years old because I was born in the year 2001 AD, and now it is 2021 AD. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, which swept across the world and irrevocably changed history and the way we view authoritarian governments, or possibly liberal governments, and the, long term we'll probably view pharmaceutical industries as a whole. And it opened up a conversation about the nature of the pharmaceutical industry that hasn't really been followed up on in our society. Because let's face it, we all know pharmaceutical companies are corrupt, but we also all know vaccines are necessary, right? Anyways, I'm 21. As I was saying, sorry, 20. I lied there because I forgot how to do math, not because I was malevolent or malicious. And he goes, oh, well, the thing about vitamin D supplements and vitamin D, the vitamin in general, is that it increases your testosterone, which in turn increases your lust. And I said, how comes I didn't know about that? And he said, well, obviously they don't tell people that because that would be a disaster. if men knew that they could take vitamin D and get super horny, young men, the walls would be sticky everywhere, right? And I also think it's just like kind of like, thing about vitamins and like your vitamin levels is, generally speaking, as long as they're within acceptable parameters, you're going to be fine. You know what I mean? People worry a bit too much about the multivitamins and all that kind of crack, right? But it turns out that vitamin D is like Viagra for young people, is what I learned. The lighting on this episode is going to be so fucked up, man. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm unwilling to fix it. Hang on, maybe I could just close the blinds here. Don't look at my dirty bed. Don't look at my dirty bed. It's usually much cleaner than that. Don't look at my dirty bed. Don't look at my dirty bed. Hey, stop looking at my dirty bed. Okay, I think that's actually helped quite a bit. But we only got like 10, maybe 15 minutes left in this episode. Let's check what time it is, because I'm on a tight schedule here. Oh no, the laptop has locked completely, and now I gotta put in the password again. Ba-da-ba-boom, bing. There's probably some guy out there who can tell exactly what my password was just by the sound in which I touch the keys. And I hope he's not watching, because I don't think I want to attract that kind of audience, right? Now, what was the point of that story? Anyway, the point was that I kept taking vitamin D supplementation. And I actually think it made me a worse human being. So yeah, that was a little topic there. And made me more lustful and full of sin. But I think in a way, I'm glad I did it, because now I've managed to deal with those feelings a lot better. Whereas if I had been slightly less lustful in my youth, maybe now at this age, I would be more prone to, maybe now that I've quit pornography, I'd be more prone, Freudian slip, into giving in to my sinful desires, I'm looking at some of the topics from the last few episodes to see if there's anything I missed that I could talk about now for the next 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm getting back into reading. I think I talked about that a little bit last week, but I started reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and let me tell you, ahead of its time. Because a lot of people thought that, when Luigi Galvani ran an electrical current through the husk of a dead animal for the first time and it moved, a lot of people thought we were going to get to creating life a lot quicker than we did in the long run. And not in the way that girls do normally through the will of God, but in like kind of an evil Frankensteinian way. And now that we're getting close to it, let me tell you, it's looking like she was pretty much right about everything. What a shock. Authors do that. Authors and philosophers, they do that thing where they kind of predict the future a lot. They need to stop doing that, because then nothing's exciting, because then when something happens, we already know how it's all going to work out. Now, does it still work out exactly the way they predicted? Yes. Do we change our course of action? No. But it does make it a little bit boring, because then nothing in the world is surprising. This life is as lived as it has ever been. That didn't make sense, that last sentence. Who cares, right? I don't know. I think these sunglasses do look good. You see, now, normally I don't wear my suits when I record this podcast, because I want to maximize kind of like a casual tonal attitude. Maybe when I'm, a little bit more developed, I have like a proper space to the podcast, and I'll do that, because when I leave the house, I tend to wear like a suit, a shirt and tie, maybe a vest and a jacket. And not every day, but a lot of the days, and that's pretty weird, right? But that is who I am. And I'm not doing it to be weird, but I'm doing it because I feel comfortable in that clothes. But I also do recognize that it is unusual. But I think most people who meet me, when they see me do it, they initially think, oh, he's doing this to kind of, say something, which is not something you want to be doing. They're like, oh, he's trying to draw attention to himself. But then I think they eventually realize that, oh, no, he's just doing this for because he actually does feel comfortable. And I think they kind of accept that, and it warms them up to be a little bit more in terms of friendship and understanding, right? At least I hope so. Maybe not. You gotta know how you're perceived in this life, right? Because there's the way you perceive yourself, and then there's the way everyone else perceives you. And depending on how many social circles you're in, there could be multiple ways other people perceive you, right? And you gotta take advantage of that fact, because let me tell you, the way you perceive yourself, almost never how other people perceive you. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are very unaware of that, and it leads to some bad things. So I like to keep a close eye on other people's perceptions of me, and they're never as good as my own. Because I think I'm just that guy. But look, in reality, I am well aware that I'm not. And most people find me to be a bit erratic and slightly unpleasant, if not a little bit rude. But, they also believe me to be capable of goodness deep in my soul. But you also can't push them on that too much, because eventually if you dick them around too much, they'll stop thinking that. So that's basically who I am as a person. And then every once in a while I do something morally kind of redeeming that they go like, oh yeah, there's a good guy inside there somewhere. Just enough that will keep him around. And he's, largely pleasant conversationally. So we're chill with this. But we all know secretly he's a piece of shit. And we don't know if he knows that. But I do. That's actually probably not how most people see me. I manipulated people enough to, I think most people think I'm a good guy. And look, that's a great bit of Machiavellianism on my part. Remember how I casually and nonchalantly mentioned Luigi Galvani there earlier? Yeah, I'm pretty smart. That'll contribute to how you guys perceive me. One, the fact, if I hadn't brought up that I knew that, you guys would have thought I am smart. And now that I have brought up that I know that, you guys are going to think I'm a pompous douchebag. See? You can change people's perception of you in just a moment. That was a life lesson, I think. I shouldn't go into these episodes raw without any topics, but I knew that since it would be a shorter one, that would probably be fine. And then there's basically nothing you can do to stop me, because it's my podcast at the end of the day. I'm trying to pick a good summer scent, you know what I mean? I think my scent game for the winter time, I kind of had it on point. I had a nice vanilla tobacco kind of scent. I had an oud wood one. And then, what was the last one I had? Oh, I had Polo Green by Ralph Lauren, which is this nice pine kind of not smoky so much, but just like pine cone kind of scent. And that was all pretty great. But for the summer, I don't know. I want to, you got to get something a little bit citrusy. Obviously, you got to get your basic citrus one. I've already got that picked out. That's fine. But then it's like, where else do we want to go? I think maybe like the vanilla tobacco one could work in the summer as well. But I would like to go for something a little bit different, a little bit more adventurous, but I'm not sure what kind of flavors you want. Maybe something cinnamony. That's too wintry. And the Ralph Lauren one kind of has that. Maybe, I don't know, what's a good scent for the summer? You got your citrusy ones, maybe kind of a fruity, almost feminine-esque one that still has that masculine touch. What are good summer flavors, Vanilla, I guess, is pretty good, yeah. Maybe just a nice, a leather. Yeah, we need a leathery kind of scent. That's what we need for the summertime. We need a nice leather kind of reflective. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna look into a nice leathery scent for the summer, because you got to keep smelling well, boys. And look, about the olfactory system is like a big determining factor in compatibility romantically with people. Well, guess what? Most people now are on some form of hormonal disruptor. They're on some kind of thing that disrupts their hormones, men and women. And your ability to detect pheromones in that natural biological way is probably fucked already. And when, you can be with someone for 10 years and then maybe they stop taking that hormonal disruptor, and guess what? It turns out you didn't like each other the whole time. You just liked the way they smelled when they were being disrupted. And that's fine. And then you get divorced. And then that or maybe you get lucky, and then actually when you stop, you turned out you're more attracted to each other than ever. That can happen as well. I'm not gonna be all negative Nancy about it. The technology we as humans have created does have a lot of benefits. And it's kind of rude of us to assume that the people making this technology are always malevolent in their intent, because I think most of them are generally probably sound. They're probably sound. And they didn't predict the negative consequences their product would have. Now, when they found out about that negative consequence, did they take the product off the shelf, do a recall on it, make sure that people don't continue to suffer? No. Did they hide the evidence that the product has those negative consequences? Yes. Was that in order for them to continue to maintain their profits? Yes. But who among us wouldn't? If I was rich, would I do the morally right thing if it meant I'd become poor again? Probably not. In fact, God only knows the lengths I would go to maintain my status in the world. And look, I know some of you are like, no, I'm a good guy. I probably do the right thing. And maybe like one of you would. Let's say 100 people listen to this podcast. All of you are saying that, right? Except for the one guy who's like, fuck it. Yes, I will disabuse the public of any notions that I'm a good person and I will become a malevolent threat to society in order to maintain my wealth and stature. Yes. There's one guy like that, right? If there's 100 people listening to this, which there never will be. But there's one guy among you who's like, no, I do the right thing, But then the other 98 of you, and he really would do the right thing. The other 98 of you are saying right now, you're like, I probably do the right thing. And maybe like 10 of those are probably going like, oh, I hope I do the right thing, But of those 98, all of them would get to the point where they're rich and just be like, fucking, like how bad could the consequences of my actions really be? And like even if I take my product off the market, the patent has expired and other companies will just do the malevolent thing and make loads of money. So there's no point in me losing money to do the right thing when the right thing isn't going to happen. And you can use that load-bearing mentality that your contribution won't make a difference to justify your moral negligence. And, that's okay. We're not perfect. It isn't okay. We should be better, but we're not going to be. I'm not going to inspire millions. I'm not Jesus of Nazareth. There's nothing I can really do. All I can do is my best, which I should probably start doing. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we have hit the 30-minute mark. I do have a couple more minutes before I got to get going here. So, fuck it. Let's still talk for a couple more minutes if I can, right? If I can come up with something to say. I'm so lonely. I am. But in a way that's kind of like, it'll work out for me, right? Or maybe it won't, we can die at any time. That is a true thing. Maybe this will develop into sepsis. I hope not. I think it's actually fine. I don't even think it penetrated much of the skin. I think it was like just one of those tiny little, like it broke the top layer of skin and there was a little bit of blood, but I think it healed. I think it was already healed before I put the bandage on it, but I'm just paranoid, because someone I know did get sepsis once and they survived. But you can never be too careful, I guess, is kind of the thing. I'm pretty sure sepsis is new. I'm pretty sure it didn't exist when I was a kid, right? Because all of a sudden, the last 5 years, all I hear about is sepsis. Like the ambulances have it written on their sides now. Everyone's talking about how dangerous it is. When I was a kid, there was none of that. Tetanus was the big thing back when I was a kid. And I'm sure what actually happened is that sepsis existed the whole entire time. But then, after that, people didn't take it as seriously because it wasn't, in the media. People thought, I have a tetanus shot, now I can just let wounds get infected. And then sepsis became a more of a life-threatening thing. And then the Health Service Executive or the World Health Organization, they were just like, we need to make people aware of sepsis globally. And now people are. So I think that's what probably actually happened. But now people go like, where's this sepsis thing coming from? That never existed before. Like me, people like me do that. So yeah, that's also a thing there. Someone's trying to call my phone right now, but I'm busy recording a podcast. Oh, they called me twice. 2 missed calls. Hey, if I didn't answer the first time, maybe I'm busy. And I know it's not an emergency, right? I know this person. There's no way they're calling me for an emergency. They're calling me, especially at this time of the day. I know for a fact, because this is around the time they're finished work, I know for a fact, and I have a social engagement with them later, so I know for a fact that what they're calling me over is not life or death. And I did not answer the first time, so I am busy. So why do you think I owe you my time? That's what I fucking despise about telephones and their existence. Now, you know what I mean. Now, okay, they just text me. Fucking hell, Jesus. Jesus, bro, I don't care. Because now you can get to me whenever you want. And guess what? I only want you to be able to talk to me when I meet you in person. I think, I was going to go on a whole rant about that, but I think I'm reiterating a point that's already been made by someone before. I think someone once expressed that and it resonated with me, but I think it's not an original idea I'm generating. And I think it was, I don't know who it was, but I think it's someone that, I don't know, I don't feel ownership enough over that thought process to say it. But what I mean is, don't call me, meet me in person, unless it actually is important, which I know for a fact this isn't. Watch now, I'll try to bring this guy back and he's dead. That's what will happen. Because I spoke too soon, because I counted my chickens before they hatched, and I didn't learn that old proverb off too well. Yeah, I got another minute or two here, I mean, I don't want this to be a shorter episode. It just has to be, because I'm a busy guy. I've got things to do, and I have a bad sleep schedule. I maintain my sleep poorly. And this episode is going to look pretty bad with me wearing the sunglasses, and that is okay. That's all good, baby. Summer dream. Yeah, I'm kind of going with a casual vibe now. That's the point I meant to make earlier, is that I'm not wearing the suits in the summer because they're a little bit too, I'm going for more of a casual kind of skater boy kind of look, but in kind of like a traditionally modern, classically sexy kind of way. All of those words did have definitions. Their definitions were incompatible. Too many adjectives there. Would never be a great author. But it would be an okay comedian. And that's the aim. Just enough to make enough money to put a down payment on a house and maybe pay it off. And then I'll just work at a library. Excuse me. Well, if I was a D-list celebrity, a library probably won't be an option, because libraries are places where people can't talk, and every once in a while someone will be like, oh my god, you're that guy who was on I'm a Celebrity season 27, when they really started going downhill in a big way, who thought he was funnier than Andy Dick but wasn't. Oh my god, gotta get an autograph. And I gotta be like, shh. I know I'm your biggest D-list celebrity, but you gotta be quiet in the library. That's what would happen. That my impression there is exactly what would happen. Wow, I'm a great predictor, of human behavior. I understand human beings. I actually don't. Sometimes I haven't a clue what's going on around me. But I think actually I better get going right now. So what I'm gonna do is leave you guys there, and next week's episode will be of a regular standard issue length. And you guys will really enjoy it, because I'll feel nice and rejuvenated, and I'll give myself a few days before I need to record that. And God bless. God bless us all. Goodbye. See you next week.